Welcome to another Play Talks episode. This time around, I have a very special guest that I've been following for years. She's an inspiration. Ever since I discovered her, I put into action and practice whatever she recommends. She's an expert in play and especially guiding families through independent play and the right kind of play. So, welcome, Lizzie Lewis Asa. She is the founder of Workspace for Children. You've been around in social media before all this was a thing, Lizzie. So tell us about yourself because you were around before COVID. I know that you've been out there for a while. So welcome. Tell us a little bit about yourself.
Thank you. And I love the post-COVID play has become, especially independent play has become such a hot topic. But yes, I've been talking about this online for years. I am a former early childhood teacher. I studied at the Bank Street School in New York City. And I was fortunate enough to study under some of the most amazing teachers, I think, in truly play-based programs. And when I had my own kids, I was able to take what I had learned and build out my space in my own home to promote independence and independent play and build confidence. And then I just started teaching families how to do it. And it's just really exploded from there.
And you lived, if I'm not mistaken, back in the day, you lived in New Jersey, right? You had that beautiful, I remember the AC unit with all the magnets. Was that in New Jersey?
Yes, we lived in New Jersey forever. And we recently moved up to the North Shore of Boston.
And you had a tiny apartment, right?
We were really lucky that we had this metal radiator that you're talking about, and I covered it in all different sorts of magnets and magnetic tiles for the kids to just come to and work. But I actually love that you brought that up because it's such a good example of sparking play, because it's not an activity, it's not a craft. The child really brings their own interest and development to the material instead of the other way around.
And I also remember back in time that I was captivated by you being you're a mom of three, right?
Mm-hmm.
Or three.
Right.
And I remember that you had all your play space next to the living room and the dining room.
Right.
And I was impressed by the use of the space, because I'm like, this movement is just showing the world how high quality play, that's how I call the high quality play without anyone interfering, happens, harmony within the environment, and how things flow within the play space. I found that to be simply amazing, and how your children play. It was always a motivation. My children were not born and one was still little, and I look up to you because I was like, this is amazing how they play independently. There's a difference in age, I remember, between the first two and the third, if I'm not mistaken.
Yep.
And how that was flowing in that tiny space.
Yeah. And, I'm glad you brought that up, because it's such a common mistake, that myself included, that parents make. And that is, we bought our first house and we immediately, I was so excited. I set up the playroom in the basement. I put all my son's toys down there. We were so excited to have, a real house with a dining room and, all this stuff. And then my second baby was born, and I was like, wait a second. I can't be going to the basement with my toddler all the time, and he's not going down there without me. And my husband actually came home from work one day, and I had gotten rid of our dining room table and moved all of our toys up to the dining room. And he was like, what is actually happening? And I was like, listen, I need to be able to take care of the baby. Like, I need to do my work and he needs to do his, basically. And this is how we're going to do it. And at first he was kind of like, wait, what? But then he saw how having play right in your main living area feeds the entire family. Our conversation, we were able to have longer conversations over dinner because our kids could hop down and just play instead of us having to get down and entertain them, right?
Correct. It was such a beautiful space. I remember that table, and the only thing, because you used everything, clay, markers, glitter, you covered it.
An old secondhand IKEA table. And I used to laugh because people would say, where's your table from? I would be like, a garage sale, you know, and that's what gave me the courage to not be worried. But I would always cover it with the white roll paper, and the kids would just, I think the key point here, though, is being in the main living space gives them the ability to come and go, to work on something for a little bit and then change to something else and come back to it. You know, so often parents will say, I can't get my child to focus long enough to do anything. And I want to say, if your child is flitting between activities, they're doing everything right. Kids are wired to move around. They are not wired to sit still and do one thing for long periods of time.
No, and you just invited development into your home and into your area and work the kitchen, which were always there. And
you know, too, if, you know, not everyone has a dining room and a, you know, and a kitchen area, and that's okay, because you can still build small play pockets into your home. So a kitchen drawer, you know, that you can empty out and fill with your toddler's favorite toys, or even cups and plates and whatever, because they're going to just play with the drawer, opening and closing it, because that's where they are developmentally, and that's valuable play. It can be a basket in your bathroom where you filled it with a few books and toys, and, you know, you can take a shower and do what you need to do while your child does what they need to do. It doesn't have to be fancy. It doesn't have to be a playroom. It doesn't have to be a dining room table. It's what works for you and is easy for you. So as the adult and the parent and the caregiver, because when it's easy for us, we're consistent. And when we're consistent, our kids learn and grow and develop.
I also like to say, when I'm talking about play spaces, that I aim for high quality play and play spaces. And this does not mean fancy or expensive materials or a huge Pinterest perfect playroom. You can have a corner, you can have a tray with it's about knowing the right toys, play schemas. What is your child engaged into? What do they enjoy? I recently purchased, and I love this idea. I don't know how come I came up with this idea so late in my life, but well. So my third son, Max, he's 3, and he loves art, and he loves messy, and he loves glue, and he loves scissors, and he loves all of that since he was 2.5. So I taught him how to use the scissors. I taught him how to use the glue, even though he probably squeezes all the glue out of one bottle. That's fine. So I came up with this beautiful caddy that I found off Amazon, and I change it every week. So I add different paper and different coloring tools and different types of scissors and different things to glue. And I swap the things inside the caddy, and that caddy goes to the kitchen, to the other table, and it goes all over the place. And so only a small element could bring amazing opportunities of play if we know what our children are into. Alberto, my 4-year-old, would never be interested in something like that. But if I put cars or something else in there, or magnetic tiles, he'll probably just be as engaged. So,
and I want to even peel that back another layer and say, you know, how amazing is that for his confidence, that he can say, wow, my work is so important. My cutting and gluing and mark making is so important that my mom takes the time to fill up this caddy with material. So I must be doing something right, you know? And that alone, you know, my biggest goal with my own kids or families that I work with and their kids is, I want kids to see themselves as confident and capable learners. That is our goal. It's not that, you know, that you need Max to be this amazing artist when he grows up. It's that you want him to see that his interests, his values, those are important enough for your family to go all in on.
And I mean,
it's not the thing that you have to spend all this money and take all these classes and, you know, and put the pressure on him. No, it's that you're just following his lead and you're just setting him up for success.
And you should see his eyes when I walk in with with a different caddy. He's like, give me that right away. Because he's like, I want it right away. And it's also,
and you know, when kids feel good, they behave well. And it's this cycle, and it keeps going.
And again, if they are engaged, they will play for hours. They won't need me. They are independent doing independent play. And that also means, because we have also this mistaken assumption that screens are the only way to get children out of boredom or engage into something. And if you have the right tools and right materials for children to play, they can play for hours. And that does not mean getting a caddy every week. As you mentioned, it could be your kitchen utensils. I do it because I love it and because that's
right.
me. But if you don't like to set up anything for your children, that's totally fine. You just need to understand development, right?
And it's also, I want to add to that too, yes, the right tools, but I think it's also about the right mindset as the adult, the mindset that we trust our children to play. And it's not, just go play, I trust you, because we all know that doesn't work, right? It is more of, your play is really important. So I'm going to do what I can in the environment to support that play. And I'm going to set limits and boundaries around play. So I'm going to be really clear that my job is to provide you with appropriate materials, space, and time to play. Your job is to play. My job is not to entertain you. My job is to maybe redirect you. Maybe sometimes you need some help getting started. My job is to reflect on your work and show you how valuable it is to me. But my job is not to entertain you or play for you.
I love that what you're saying, because the initial idea of these play talks was to give parents resources, and I always also merge in educators, because all this content also apply in the classroom when we want independent children to be playing independently and successfully. But I wanted to provide parents with a toolkit of information and resources that they could use over summer, because we have this weight on our shoulders. When we hear the word summer, we're thinking summer camps. What am I going to do? I'm going to have them in at home all day long. This is way too much. And I know that it is real. Of course, we have an agenda. We have our rhythm already, and it's going to change because it changes over time. And what you're saying is, I think, the first key element. We are not in charge of playing with our children or entertaining them. They are the ones. That's their responsibility. That's their work. That's what they need to be responsible for. And cleaning up is part of playing, and using the materials or toys or whatever they use to play is also part of their responsibility. So and actually promoting that independence includes us as adults knowing that we are not in charge. We do it if we want to do it. And if we don't want to do it, we don't do it. Like, my boys are into cars, and they know that I won't play cars because I do not like to play cars. I don't like to mimic cars. I don't like to watch the movie. So don't come to me and ask to play cars, because I don't like it. I don't enjoy it. We can do crafts. We can build. They need to know what you like and when you like it. So they go to dad, and dad loves cars, so that's great. But we are not the ones who need to show them around in play. Actually, it's counterproductive, because they start depending on you being there.
Yes. And I think it even goes back a bit farther for us, I think, as parents. And I've watched this from being in the space, the last 10 years. And, I think that parents, there's this really competitive culture of parenting, right? And with the rise of social media and documenting our children's successes, the sports, the this, the that, it becomes this really internalized pressure on parents. And to be completely truthful, like, you can't quantify your child's success through play. You have to trust, right? And that's really hard when all day long society is telling you your kid needs enrichment, your kid needs this, they're going to fall behind. There's so much fear-based marketing thrown at us all the time, that as parents, it really makes sense to me, that people think they need to have their kids in this sport, in this enrichment, in this thing. But what happens is then they don't have time for play. And play is at the basis of all development. It is how children make sense of their world. It is how children have developed socially, emotionally, and cognitively throughout time.
Mhm.
And now, we've taken that away. And then we're wondering why our kids are really suffering from anxiety and depression. And they don't know what to do when they're in an unstructured environment. And I think a lot of that really goes back to our work on ourselves as parents to not have to, post our child's successes online. It's really hard. When you see your next door neighbor's 4-year-old getting accepted to this club team or this thing, and you're getting leaflets in the mail telling you if your kid can't do this by this age, well, forget college, and you're just letting them at home play. Like, that feels scary as a parent. It even felt scary for me. And I studied play my entire life.
Yeah.
So, you know.
And I think there's a lot of pressure out there because, I mean, they see you, they see me, and we're making all of these things. And then you have all these constant urge of, I need to do something. I need to play with the kids. I need to. And I think it all goes down to narrowing down to basics. Leave
Yes.
time to just be. Have a successful play space, whichever that means to you, with just a few elements. And I know for us, both is hard because we love toys and we love, this is our job, this is what we do. But we know when there's less, they play more. When it's decluttered, they play more. If you allow your children to be home just by being, without any TV on, without anything else, right away, they will go and engage in play with those materials because that's what's left. We rescue often children for boredom. We offer screen at 7 in the morning when it's the richest time of the day where they will just wake up and go to play or engage into their own activity. If we have set up different play spaces around the house, children will engage in play. If we also, of course, summer is here. You cannot expect to be sitting at your desk for 9 hours straight. We need to somehow include breaks in which we can take them out and move. But children are capable of coping with, I was having another session the other day talking about this, coping with boredom, coping with waiting, coping.
They are, but that all starts with the parental mindset and education and work. So, I'm not going to set a parent up for success if I'm going to tell them, your kids will be fine, just set something up and let them be bored. Because actually that's not true. They will be destructive. They will keep coming back and whining. They will, keep nagging you until you do turn the TV on. And that doesn't mean there's anything wrong with you or your child. It just means you need to back up a little bit and do a little more work, which is really hard, right?
Mm-hmm.
It's really hard today. Everyone is so burnt out, including our kids. And I think it's really just a matter of prioritizing and looking at the big picture. And so, and I think a baby step that parents can take is to just start by, I know everyone panics, like summer's coming. It's the camp shuffle, like figuring out how you're going to parse together everything. Right. And I get that. Like, the struggle is real. I mean, I work from home.
Yes.
I want my kids outside. I don't want them sitting around inside while I'm working, but I have to work. And so, I really get that. But I think it's also, as you're scheduling those things in, be sure, the baby step is to be sure that you're also scheduling in the downtime. I'm always saying to parents, listen, it's September. You're saying they're going to have soccer on Tuesday and Wednesday, and they have ballet on Friday. I'm going to beg you on Monday and Thursday to have nothing, including there's not going to be like a play date, and there's not going to be we're going to run errands, and there's not going to be kids need time to practice having nothing to do.
Yes, they need that downtime. You're totally right. They need that unstructured day, that day in which they just get their fix on
and
whatever.
I think they need honesty also. A lot of times, like, we want, people will say to me like, but my kids aren't like yours. They're not going to just go play. And they're absolutely right. Because if your kid hasn't had time to practice playing, they're not going to be able to. It can really be a taught skill. And it starts with us saying, when our kids are bored, Instead of saying, I bought you all these toys, I signed you up for all these things, go play. It's really saying to them, gosh, you really aren't sure what to do.
Mm-hmm.
That makes sense. You aren't sure what to do. Usually the grownups are telling you what to do, and this is different. How can I help? And again, the how can I help isn't how can I entertain you? It's how can I connect with you around figuring it out yourself? I'm practicing that.
Correct. And there's a parent involvement. And if we want children to play independently, there's involvement. It's not just going to happen overnight. If children have been exposed and through modeling in their first few years of age, before age 3, when they cannot be on their own, it grows with them because they have been engaged and exposed to play all their lives. But
I think it's a mindset shift for parents between, the shift is we don't need to be developing our kids. We don't need to be enriching them. We just need to be present with them and let them do it themselves. And so I think there's a really big push from society saying you need to be quizzing your kids when they're playing. What does the cow say? How many blocks are there? What color is that? Right? That and I get it. That's how most parents play with their toddler, because that is what society is telling them they're supposed to be doing in order to keep their kid, with having the edge to succeed. When the truth of the matter is your kid needs to be able to follow their own lead, and they can't follow their own lead if you're constantly interrupting them.
No, because and that's not how they're building their own story. I like to think about play like storytelling, because it is a story that we're telling every day, and we sit there and we listen and we engage, and we just go with the flow. And some days I love to set up activities, and I love to invite my children to paint, or to if I'm looking into, let's say, a Saturday, I love to do all the messy play and all the things that I don't have time over the week. And that's because I like it and because I enjoy it. And if you enjoy it, you can set up all these beautiful things over time, but you do not need to have that pressure of you have to do it. You do it if you enjoy it. Same thing with play invitations. Like if children, the first couple of years, I think that these invitations are awesome because they promote play, they connect with play schemas, they invite children to explore materials differently, and there's a lot of inquiry and discovery in the first years of age. But I've seen it in my own children. There's a moment in which their play skills are solid and they move away from that. So I could set up something beautiful and they would not even touch it. So again,
they have their own ideas and the confidence now to do it themselves. And that's so important. And, I don't like to tell parents what they shouldn't do without giving them a tip for what they can do instead. And so I feel badly saying, don't say, how many blocks are there and all these things without giving you something that you can replace that behavior with. So I just want to go back to that and just say, I like to teach parents to kind of switch to an observing and then reflection way of engaging with their child instead. So, instead of jumping in with your own agenda, how many blocks are there? I'm going to teach them their colors during this, by really watching what they're doing, just observing that quietly yourself. You don't have to say anything. When your child just feels your presence and your eyes on them, like that is more than enough. And then later reflecting that. Right. And so later saying, hey, I noticed you pulled out all the red blocks out of the bin. I'm so curious about that. Tell me more about that. Or when they're in the bathtub at night, instead of saying, can you pour from one container to the other? Just watching them, just observing how they're behaving with the water, what they find interesting, and then maybe reflecting that back later. So, the first night you're going to watch them in the bath. And then the second night you're going to say, hey, last night in the bath, I noticed you were scooping and dumping water. And so I added a few more scoops to the bath. You can use them if you want, or you can do whatever you want. But that's how we're going to support their learning and their lead with the environment and with our presence, but without being in charge.
And you know what? You'll be surprised because they would probably prompt you with what you were going to prompt them before you
That's
actually do, because children love sharing and they would communicate. This morning, I was playing with the boys and they're, of course, into cars. So I just sat there and I'm like, don't ask me about the movie or anything like that. Because, he said, well, Mama, just help us build the day track. And I'm like, how does that look like? And he's like this and like that, and you go up and down. And I'm like, well, I'll try. Let's see if that works out. Of course, it did not work out because it had to be exactly the way he had it in his mind. But he's like, for my birthday, my children only get things for birthday or Christmas. They get 3 things that they wish for. And of course, all year long, they're they're adding towards that list. So Alberto's birthday is coming up, and he's like, for my birthday, I need more of those roads because I want to be able to cover the entire playroom because we need to make a longer track. So you know what? I observed, I listened, and it's not only me because those things are expensive. I'm just gonna have everyone who wants to join collaboratively into getting him more of that, which he will enjoy for the rest of the
yeah.
year. And that will give me time for my things, that will give him engagement and motivation. And that's how that came from me observing his play and what he wants. It's not just because he wants it, it's because I know it will actually kick that play into the next level, because right now he's being limited and he uses a lot of open-ended play materials to build them, but of course they don't work the same way because he wants tracks.
Right.
So
but I think you brought up another good point, and that happens to all parents when your child says, help me build, the track, or build this part for me. And then it's kind of like, oh, like, am I doing it for them? Like, what's going on? And if you do it for them, then you did it wrong. But if you don't, then are you a bad parent because you're not playing with them? And I think what you did is such a great thing to call out, which is to say, tell me more about it, right? Tell me more about the thing that you're hoping to build so that I can understand it better, right? And then reflect that back to them. You can say like, well, do we need to start at the bottom or the top? And so your job as the parent is really to help them think through their own process, not say to them, can I get, let me, no, move over. Let me do it like this, or let's turn it this way so that it doesn't fall over there. And I think that happens a lot as parents, and then the kids are frustrated, and then the connection is lost, and also the learning is lost, and the confidence is not built, right? But if our goal with play is to help our kids build their confidence in themselves, their capability, it's going to be to scaffold the thinking, right? So when our kid comes to us and says, help me build this really tall tower, it's not going to be to start building it. It's going to be to start, by saying to them, okay, what do you think we should start with? Tell me more about why. Okay, great. Let's try that. What do you think might happen if it falls? Things like that, where you're just helping them, you're scaffolding how they can think through the process. You're not thinking it through for them.
And that whole process teaches children way more than asking for how many red blocks or how many. Yeah. So it's also an unlearning process for us adults, because we think that if we sit there and we teach them colors or we teach them numbers within that play experience, they're actually learning. And the learning happens through all those thinking processes present in open-ended play, in pretend play, in the conversations, in the logics of how things work, in the collaboration to building together, and all that executive functioning happening through rich play experiences.
I recently was doing a professional development with a group of preschool teachers, and I had observed in the classroom first, and they had mixed age, and they were really struggling because they were not sure how to run their circle time, their meeting, right? Because they were trying to do like calendar and how you sit and how you raise your hand, and you do all these things, and but like the little kids were kind of like and then they're like roll falling over, and but the teachers feel a lot of pressure, right? Because they're like, but the big kids have to be able to go to kindergarten, and they need to know how to sit and quietly, and how to raise their hand, and how to do the weather. And I really challenged them to think about, if we think of our job as parents and teachers and caregivers to teach our kids how to be confident and capable learners, then they will go to kindergarten. It will be easy for them to learn how to, be a part of that community. They can transfer their skills. But if we're teaching them things that are a reach for them developmentally, like a 3-year-old can't sit and raise their hand and the weather doesn't mean anything to them, right? And so instead, if at meeting, you're having conversations about what made you feel angry today, or how can you move your body to show how you're mad, or any of those things matter to 3-year-olds. So they're going to attend and they're going to pay attention, and then they're going to start seeing themselves as someone who knows how to be a part of a community. They know how to sit in the circle and engage. And so when they go to kindergarten, of course, maybe it's going to be different. Maybe they're sitting at a desk. Maybe their teacher says you have to raise your hand before you talk, but they already have that self-concept that they're so good at learning and being part of the community that they will adapt easily.
Yes, I totally agree. It's a matter of, we should invest more of our time understanding development and how it looks like, and letting go of all this pressure that society brings from expectations, from skills, from overscheduling, from these are the things that your children need to become successful. What children need to become successful in life is play. They need to play. That's all they need to do. They need to move, to play, to nurture their body, to sleep, to eat the right kind of food. And if you give them that nurture and promote that nurture, they will become whoever you want them to become, because we're just equipping them to be successful human beings. And overall, as parents, that should be our main goal. And as educators as well. Education is equipping children to thrive in life with whatever that means, right? Liz, if I were to ask you, just to start closing up, what would be like your best advice? What things to follow over summer? How to decrease this burden, to have parents change their mindset instead of seeing it as a burden, seeing it as a possibility, as an opportunity to connect, to promote play, to let children rest, to let children get bored, to let children be. And again, it's not easy because they will be home. And if you have more than one, they will be chasing after the other. But that's part of childhood,
Yes.
right?
I think it would really be, and this is really from like a working parent standpoint, is to start now with really tiny baby steps for your own self. It's like not even doing anything with your kids yet. It's for your own self saying, hey, I'm going to set a timer on my phone. I'm not going to interfere with whatever their play is or whatever it is that they're doing right now for 15 minutes. Even if they get in an argument, of course, unless it's dangerous, but even if they're in an argument, if they come to me, I'm going to reflect back and put it on them. I want you as an adult to take a little bit of time now before before you feel like you're in crisis mode of summer and now you don't know what to do, to build your own tolerance and your own trust that kids can work it out. You're going to have to scaffold. You're going to have to put in the work, all of those things. But right now, I would really encourage parents, it's the beginning of spring, start building in small pockets of downtime where you are not going to rescue them and you are not going to entertain them, and talk to them about it. You can say that. You can say, hey, listen, I'm thinking a lot about summer and I really want you guys to be able to play. And that means I have to do some work too. Kids love when we talk to them like the real whole humans that they are and partner with them. So I'd really encourage you to start doing that now instead of waiting until summer.
Yeah, that's awesome. Lizzie, I want you to share. I'm going to share your website here, but I would love to share, and I'm going to also read it, workspaceforchildren.com. And I want you to share about what you do, because you have such a strong career and you've done so much for play that the world needs to know and everyone needs to know. And I'm grateful for what you do. I've learned a lot. You've been an inspiration. And I remember that play space deep in my heart. And when now Elena is almost 10, but when she was little, I looked up to you and I'm like, that's what I want. I want that calm, because that space, I can see it like right here. That space just reminded me of calm, of presence, of play, and no rush. It seemed so magical. And I know we can only see so much on the other side, but it was real because
It
it was
was a safe haven. It was a safe haven for the children, and for me, it was really a place where time could stop and the kids could really just process their world. And it took a lot of work on my end. It took a lot of work to say no, to the sports teams, and to say no to, the extra enrichment, and to battle my own inner perfectionist fears of, am I giving them what they need? Like, all the neighbors' kids are going to this math tutor. Why aren't mine? Things like that. But to me, I just doubled down on play. And I have to tell you, like, I have tweens and teens now, and I am so thrilled with these kids. And I'm not saying they're easy, and I'm not saying they're perfect, because they are not, but they are very sure of who they are. And they are just, I'm so proud of them.
Yeah, you're able to share testimony of how that play impacted their lives. And I know that it might seem like long days when we have them little, but it goes so fast. So as parents, we need to slow down during those years, because we cannot do it all. We cannot do it all. We cannot have 10 capes and put them on at the same time doing things right.
And
So
that's the best part about independent play, is that it gives us time back for ourselves, and then we can be more present with our families.
I totally agree. So share, brag. What do you have? What's Workspace for Children? What are
Sure.
the
So, I mean, on my website, you can find me on Instagram, or on my website, I also just launched a Substack, which I'm so excited about.
I just joined.
Yeah, you did? Oh, it's great.
Yes.
I've been on it, I think, for about 6 months or so.
I love it. I was gonna mention that too, because I enjoy, because I love reading it.
I love Substack. But with summer coming, I do have resources for parents. I have a really simple starter guide to quiet time and independent play. And it's going to really just teach you the basics of how to set up a routine where not only is your child playing independently throughout the day, but you also have a scheduled pocket of time each day, where everyone has some downtime, which is great for summer. And then I have another resource. There's one for little kids called the Play Plan, and one for older kids called the Big Kid Play Plan. And, it is a list of activities, but it uses materials that you most likely already have at home. And the idea behind these plans, and I think why they've been so wildly successful, is because these aren't crafts. These aren't things that have instructions. These are ways to just spark play for your child, and they're going to take it from there.
Mm-hmm.
And I also really encourage you to put the same thing out over and over and over. And these plans reflect that, because as your child grows and develops, they bring that to the material. So you don't need to reinvent the wheel. Kids gain mastery when they've had repeated opportunities with the same sturdy open-ended materials over and over and over again. And these plans kind of give you the courage and just kind of show you just like the little how-to. And my favorite thing about them is that when people use them a lot, they always come back to me and say, like, gosh, look what I did next. Like, look what my kid did with this next, because it gives parents confidence and it gives kids confidence. And that to me is just like special.
That's like an amazing resource, because you can equip parents who do not know how to start or get started, or
yeah, and it can be overwhelming.
Yes, it is. I mean, for us, it's not, because it's natural. We are teachers. We've been around this world forever. But if you've never been exposed to any of this and you want to do it, something like these plans could give you that push to get started.
Yeah.
And once you master it, you will have your own play plan and play experiences, exposure at home the way you want it.
That's right. And I got a message from someone the other day saying, they bought the original play plan in 2020, and now their daughter is old enough to babysit. And this mom said to me, my daughter printed out the play plan and she brings it to her babysitting jobs and sets it up, for her babysitting clients. And it was so full circle. It was amazing. I was so happy.
Because you touched that life in one of the most meaningful moments of her life. She remembered those experiences with joy, because that's what we want. We want to activate these core memories in all these loved memories in life. and want children to replicate and to actually value why was that so important and unique and special. But that's absolutely amazing. What a great story. All right. So, yes, I shared your website. I shared your Instagram, which is also the
Thank you.
workspace for children. You share amazing resources and things. And what I love the most is that it is all real. So it reflects your reality, it reflects things that you already lived and tried with your own children. So you know they work. And experience, because it's not the same thing to be a teacher than to be a mom and to
And I
juggle
think, so,
two.
one of the things I'm so lucky about having been in this space for 10 years is that it's not just about my own kids or the kids that I've taught. I've really had the opportunity to learn from families who have used these resources in their homes and then go back and reiterate these plans and reiterate how to explain it when I'm learning from the families that I work with. How does this make sense to them? How can I make it clearer or better? And so being in this space for so long, I've really had the opportunity to do that. And I'm so grateful for that.
Yes, of course, because you get exposed to many different
Yeah.
personalities and different ways of playing and interests
Yeah.
and personality. Yes, personality overall, because all
Mhm.
children are different and they engage into play differently. So thank you very much, Lizzie, for your time. I wish you the best of luck in all the different projects that you have coming up, and
Thank
it's always great to share with you and to learn from you.
Thank you so much for having me. I'm so grateful to be here.
Thank you.